When you're doing these kind of projects, it's awful hard not to buy parts that you think you're gonna need, but inevitably you buy stuff ahead of time and you end up not needing it. For example, this condenser is a factory replacement that I got from LMC Truck. I installed it thinking I could make the factory lines and everything else work. I wanted to keep the original dash controls because they look so cool and they match kind of the era and the style of the truck. I use what they call an R4 or radial, also known as a pancake style compressor, because I thought it would be much easier to install these factory lines. Also, the peanut style compressors or the Sandins, or SD7s, or whatever nomenclature, tend to hang out back here and block access to servicing like spark plugs or oil changes and things like that, which I do not love. As a matter of fact, we've had those valve cover covers, those two-piece from Holley on another build, and you literally had to take the belt off and rotate the compressor out of the way every time you change the oil. So when the time came to do the air conditioning system in this truck, I called the guys at Vintage Air, which is my favorite of the big three, and we have used all of them. As a matter of fact, if you look at our kind of wall of shame there, there's the top one was Vintage Air, and that one was Restomod Air, the F100, and then we used Old Air products on the square body in the bottom. So now that we've had the experience of using all three, I know which one we're going with for this truck. And they told us, look, you're gonna end up fighting trying to use that factory stuff that was designed for R12, I think, back in the day. And now these systems utilize R134A, which is fairly inexpensive and readily available. The guys at Vintage Air built us a kit with everything except the compressor and sent us the fitting that we need to run on that radial style, aka pancake compressor. Even though he didn't love it and didn't want to do it, I insisted on keeping that. So let's see what we got. This is their Gen 5 kit. It came out, I think, last year, like 2024. They claim it's got phenomenal airflow compared to any other system, really. And it's probably more than twice what the factory 89 fan motor and stuff will move as far as air. Also, they claim that it doesn't hang down as low as the factory kit does underneath your dash, so it allows a little more legroom for our taller folks. So we'll probably leave this bagged up for now so we don't get any dust or anything in it. This was kind of my turnoff about going with Vintage Air. This looks like every other classic car or square body, honestly, with just these slide controls and not having the factory style push button. They at least did put like a gray decal on it, so it'll kind of match the charcoal that these trucks came with. And using these gray buttons, every little bit helps. I can appreciate that. It just doesn't have that same vibe that the factory controls do. But I'm willing to trade that 10 days out of 10 for a good solid air conditioner. Here's our other box of goodies, which I don't think this is the stuff we're gonna need right away, as we'll be doing probably the interior components first. There's that fitting that we asked for specific so we could use the pancake or radial compressor. They sell this as a separate part number on their website in case you're trying to make this work as well. We ordered very specific fittings, and I did look at and kind of give them direction on what angle that I wanted those to be for it to work out in our engine compartment. Here's the new condenser, which is considerably thicker, and it's black, which I like better than the silver one that's in there. They do have a giant decal on top of this box that says do not open with sharp objects, so you don't take like your pocket knife and scratch across these and cause damage that you don't want to have. I just have a single type switch for our compressor. I don't need a trinary because we're not running electric fans, but they'll talk you through that. And then I do like this quite a bit. They've already crimped a lot of the lines on here for you. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think if you use their compressor assembly with their brackets, you can get these lines 100% pre-made from them, so you don't have to take them down somewhere and have these crimped. I think I'm gonna go ahead and just order one of those hand-done hydraulic tools that compresses these. They offer them on their website for like $400, which is seems excessive to me when you can get them like online, maybe Amazon for like 120 bucks. Here's that pro tip coming back to pay itself off. These heater hoses that go to the water pump, remember whenever I filled the system to test it, it just has distilled water in it, no coolant. Because I knew that, well, first of all, if you find a leak, you don't want it to be leaking $20 a gallon coolant. And so that's kind of a nice test. Also, I knew I had to come back and do this AC system, which was going to require me to break it apart to install the new heater core that's part of the condenser. And I really didn't feel like having to collect all that antifreeze and et cetera. So when you just use distilled water, you have the benefit of just letting it drain. And there may have been some residue in the block, but for the most part, this is just distilled water. So I can let it drain naturally and just run out the back door into the yard or whatever, because it's not gonna hurt anything in the environment. So that's pretty cool. Now I gotta get to the inside. That was easy enough. To say the instructions are not complete would probably be an understatement. It mentions like removing 3 connections from the stock evaporator unit, but I thought I want to show those to you. Also, this little distribution manifold, whatever, attaches to the bottom here. Take that screw out and snap it loose before you do anything. There's a connection here, so I recommend you remove the factory radio computer thing down so you can get to remove that. Basically, whatever you can see that has electrical connections on it, like there's one here, then it attaches, like there's, the wiring harness attaches to this thing in several places, and you want to remove all of that. One of them's like a clip, several of them have screws. There's a metal plate here you can remove that has 3 relays on it that you can get those out of the way. Then there's a connector here that you need to disconnect. Also, the tough one is back here, so you'd have to reach from the front side and disconnect this connection, which is on this side of it. So that's not a good time whatsoever. Let's see. Also, it mentions to remove the ECU, which snaps into here if you're running like the factory throttle body power control module. And to unplug it, but you also have to remove this plate, which there's the 7mm headed screws that go here, 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 and here. No real way to get to those while this is in the truck. I was able to get this one and this one loose and then just tore it off. As you can see, there's still a little plastic left behind those screws. I'm not using this anyway, and there's no reason for me to throw a bigger fit trying to save a part that I'm just gonna discard anyway. So I hope this helps the next person. Again, it is not super easy. Oh, there's another electrical connection that was here and here. So when they say there's 3, technically there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I think that's it, along with removing however that harness is connected to this stock evaporator. They do mention like 5 screws on this side, on the firewall side, to remove it. There's not 5 screws. There are these 3 that go from the firewall into this unit. Then there's a nut that goes on this stud. There's also a nut that goes on this stud here that's directly behind where your carburetor or whatever type of engine you're running. There was also one of these studs right here, which clearly I didn't see that before I went to pulling this thing out. Mine is an 89, so there could be some differences, but just to kind of point it out, you see this hole here, that's where one of the studs will have a nut on it that you'll need to remove. There's one down here by where your water lines connect to the heater core. You take the nut off of there. And then this is one of the screws. It's actually holding that evaporator thing off of it, or dryer. And then there's these other 2 on the firewall side that have to be removed to pull this thing out. One last thing, I showed you the bolts that had to be removed to get the dash loose, one on each side, which you've got to remove the kick panels, which means you've got to remove the door seals. This sits on a stud also that is right here. There's no nut on it on mine, but they don't mention it, but you're gonna have to lift this up and over or pry this towards the center of the truck so you can get it forward of that stud to make room to pull that evaporator out from behind the dash. We just as good a time as any to make sure and tell you, read the instructions first, head to toe, before watching this video, or watch this video and then read your instructions, because there's gonna be some things that I didn't maybe go over in detail, like taking a screw out or something in the dash. I showed you most of it that the instructions was clear about, but I really wanted to point out the things that they weren't clear about. Also, because I didn't read them first, this is not a firewall block-off plate. This blocks off the fresh air inlet, which is under the dash, and you will put some silicone on it and run some, I think, sheet metal screws to seal that off. Just like most vehicles have a recirculate button or max AC. Basically what that does is use the air that's already in the cabin of your vehicle and recirculates that through your HVAC, so it doesn't have to work as hard to recool and re-dry the air. If you use the fresh air or the one-way little emblem that they used to have, this basically closes this door off, whereas here this is open to the air inside the cab. This door would shut with that little actuator, and it would pull air from the cowl up below where the windshield wipers are into the HVAC system for fresh air, if you will. This little bare metal piece that they shipped is actually a template that you lay over where the factory lines came through the firewall here, and you drill those out where the holes are marked, and then you have to drill a little larger hole in the bottom. That's for the condensation drain, and then cut, it says 3/4 of an inch of that little metal strap that's left between the upper hose and then the oblong oval. So ours is cut and ready for the next evolution. In the provided hardware, there's a bunch of these, well, they'll list you, these 1/4 inch screws with fender washers and nylon locking nuts. So you can plug the 2 studs that are removed when you take it off here on the firewall. You can see one there. And then those 2 holes that you remove screws from that held the condenser against there. So you're gonna use those to plug those 2. We've also installed that plate that we showed you with some silicone around it. That's sealed up. And they provide these little caps to close off where the fitting went to the factory dryer. Working on our new evaporator here. You can install this one on the end. You can tell it goes up because it has little reliefs right here. So you're gonna put these little snap clips on there. They do send you two types of clips. This style, which I think is what holds the hose to stuff like this. And then they send you 8 of these little clips so you can attach these, I don't know what you'd call the things, plenums. This will separate the air on the back side of the unit, so it'll go like towards the feet. Not sure this guy's gonna get a whole lot of air because it's just gonna hit the box right there. I think this will get some slinkies to go up into a different manifold. And then this one will clip in here, which will probably go to a different manifold also. I think it's not that they're tight as much as there's that rubber seal in there, that plug that keeps it from wanting to turn. All right, so it held pressure. So we should be in good shape as far as the heater cord that's built into this guy. Interestingly enough, this fitting is labeled 68 to 83 Toyota FJ40. Now we'll have a GMC with a Jeep steering shaft and a Ford 9-inch and Toyota heater line. Tip cut off. The instructions say that this one goes on the top. It's an interesting angle. All right, so those are loose. You do want them snugged up pretty good. You don't want to damage that O-ring if they get to move too much. All right, put the cap on this. Like a good boy. Okay, now this bracket is going to go on like so with these 4 number 10 by 5/8 screws, which were in the baggie with the hose clamps. So were these longer clips that hold these plenums on, just FYI. All right, so it wants us to put these studs in here. So I'm guessing we'll thread them in this direction, because I'm guessing they probably stick through the firewall in a factory location, which makes a little bit of sense. Okay, they are threaded all the way to where they're protruding out of the back side of these nuts that are welded onto this bracket. So next move, been warned again that these are under pressure, so we're moving them carefully. So we had to break open our other box that has the pre-made hoses in it to get these installed. And it'll actually also use our last 2 O-rings that were in that bag. I hear it. Oh, there's already an O-ring on that. Okay. Make sure and put some oil on it then. This one has an O-ring on it as well. I guess we won't need to use the other 2. Maybe they forgot they already installed these O-rings. These things are not supposed to be crazy tight. Oops, that's not enough. Because you'll just crush the O-ring, I guess. That's not good. But it is sort of nerve-wracking to think you've got all this stuff done and all taped up and you just hope it doesn't leak. It's a real pain, I would imagine, to take all this back apart. Okay, I think that looks wonderful. All right, so let's talk about these heater hoses. Both of these outputs from the Vintage Air unit are 5/8, so you're gonna have to pick yourself up some 5/8 hose. Whether you have an OBS with like the factory engine, or if you've done an LS swap, you're gonna run into the same problem. They used 3/4 inch and 5/8 hoses. So the 3/4 inch, if you look, here's just a little quick lesson. Coolant always comes into your engine from the bottom port on your radio. So that's all from your radiator. So that's always the input. Then you're gonna have a thermostat behind it, which on an LS, it sort of divides this right here where the thermostat base sits. And what that allows is this coolant can come from the radiator and actually go on into the heater core and then circulate from there out through the smaller 5/8 hose and enter the water pump on the back side of the thermostat so it can start circulating through your engine. So here's a little pro tip for you. If you're ever having heating issues or if your thermostat happens to stick, run your heater wide open, and that will help not only open the heater control valve so coolant, a little bit of coolant can circulate through your engine. It'll actually remove the heat or some of that heat from the coolant when it's attempting to heat the cab. This is a Gates parts available at most part stores, and it goes reducer from 3/4 to 5/8. So we will have to reduce that for the input side. And then on the output side of our heater core is where I'm probably gonna put the heater control valve, which it has a direction mark. The reason I'm doing it on the output side, ideally I'd rather it be on the input and just close off that coolant before it goes in there. But it's 5/8 on both ends. If I do it from this direction, imagine that the firewall is here. I'm gonna have a heater control valve sitting there, and then this reducer in line from the 3/4 to the 5/8 hose. And that just kind of gets bulky and ugly. Whereas I can run this really close to the firewall for the input side, and then just put this as the output, and all this will kind of be together. And I think that will probably end up looking the best. You can also run, you could do that reduction right here, so it's kind of hidden under the AC compressor, and then just see 2 5/8 hoses if you like. But I've already got brand new Gates safety stripe heater hose there that I'd really rather to keep in place, because it kind of looks nice on how this factory connection is supposed to hold those 2 different sizes of hose. Yeah, that certainly would have been difficult to try to film. So what I've done is kind of routed all the wires that came through the firewall up and behind this AC unit. Also, they ship it to you with their ECM bolted to or screwed to the top, and they want you to take that loose and relocate it to the front. So I took that loose. You're going to reuse the bolt back there that requires that super long extension and screws to the firewall. And then those studs that we installed are going to find their way through those. So this is not just super tight right now. Again, that bolt is reused back there. And then those other 2 studs, I've still got to put that bracket here to mount the ECM, because it wants you to bolt it to the dash structure. Also, once you get this thing kind of leveled up so the drain will work properly, which we have not installed yet. I'll also point out in their instructions, they've removed the entire dash, like, so you have all this visibility, which is nice for instructions, but it kind of sucks the way you have to install it, because you just can't get to this stuff that their instructions do without completely removing the dash. This area was not the simplest thing to do, but that's their bracket with the rubber gasket and the way they want these hoses routed. I just ran the blue wire that's your goes to your binary or trinary switch, and then sends it signal to the compressor to run. These are the 2 AC lines, and then this is my 5/8 line that goes out to the water pump where I tied that in. And then the supply side, I put this reducer that I showed you earlier. I don't love how it looks, but you know, this is not a show truck necessarily. but it's halfway decent and clean. They ship these wires, see this is a red and white, get twisted real tight together, and this is a power and ground. Then they send these heavy orange and white for power and ground. So I separated these two, just put them in a drill motor and actually run it clockwise and it'll sort of unbraid these. Put these two white wires together. I'm not going to be using this factory antenna, so I just pulled it out of this hole, which you could probably run yours wherever you want. I'm going to tie these two together. I'm going to put them in some of this loom and run them in these clips along where the power source for this light goes. And then I can put an eyelet and run them to this ground, which is tied directly to the battery here, as you can see. So that's gonna clean that up nicely. And again, these will just run up with these other wires and attach to this battery feed right here on that power strip. These are just kind of draped out for now. I'm not really sure what I want to do next. And the instructions, I think, call for doing the stuff under the hood next. But I'd really like to finish up getting that unit bolted up and get that dash bolted back in and secured. So I'll probably do that, but I wanted to give you guys sort of a progress. These are just things that are difficult to film. Also, the instructions want you to remove the studs that you ran into these two places on the bracket. But I ended up just using nylock nuts that I had that are, quarter 20 with the fender washers. Because they want you to take these out and send bolts in there, but it was already there, it was hanging. I just put the nuts on there, it seems fine. And again, this is a reused bolt that you run from the back side of the firewall. It's extremely long now, but I think it'll still fit underneath that plastic cover. I do not have those completely tight yet in case I need to move some wires around. Hopefully I can make that stuff look nice and clean and then snug it up. I realize this video is gone pretty long by now, and that's okay. Unfortunately, we'll just break it up into two parts, which I kind of hate doing, but it would be better to have two in-depth videos than one video that just kind of skims over a bunch of stuff and leaves a lot of questions for you guys, especially those that are watching this for help. Maybe they're struggling with it or these installs. Also, there's something that normally don't want to really talk about personal stuff on YouTube because I mean, it's personal, and that's, that's what that means by definition. But I lost my dad about this past week, and it was sudden. And those are really tough things to go through. Luckily, this was the blessings that I counted, was getting to talk to him all the time, almost every day. We'd go to lunch together maybe once a week or every couple of weeks. And that was super special. And I realized there's a lot of people out there who don't have that same story when they lose a loved one, someone close to them, whether it's a parent or a close friend. What I'd love to do here, since I just have this platform, small as it may be, if there's someone in your life, especially a parent or a child, that your relationship is not as strong as you know that it should be, reach out to them and get that fixed. You don't really know how many days God gives you on this earth or God gives your loved ones, whether that's a close friend or a family member. Sometimes when a friend comes to my mind or I think of them, I'll text them and just let them know, hey, just thinking about you and seeing how things are going, or maybe call them. You never know where someone else is. And if they're struggling with something right now, a simple phone call from you could change their entire life. It could also change yours. If you find out something they're struggling with. My dad wasn't struggling with anything besides, a few minor health issues, but nothing to make us believe that it would be tragic like this. So tomorrow is not promised. So make sure that you are getting right with God and with the people in your life, because you don't want to live with the regret that you didn't want to just do so much as shoot a text or pick up the phone and call. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you've made it this far, I would love to hear your story. If you've got something that you've done that you were grateful that you did, or not, just have an outlet for reaching out to people in this is a community, as odd as it may seem. So thank you guys for watching. I will get the wiring done on that stuff under the dash on the truck and mount the controls, and we'll do some quick covering of that, and then we'll get in depth about building those AC lines and finishing up the wiring, changing that condenser, getting it charged. We'll cover all that stuff in the next video. I hope I can have it for you guys next week. I like to have a video a week. And the only way that's going to happen this week is to put this into 2 parts. So thanks for watching.